Welcome to the Mindful Movement Show. We're your hosts, Tony and Amanda Johnson.
This is a podcast dedicated to helping moms and dads heal their hurts, transform their health from the inside out, and become the best people, partners, and parents they can possibly be.
Our mission is to normalize struggle and profile stories of resilience, character building, and the process of healing and becoming.
In Season 1, we spotlight healers from a variety of modalities who are also parents. We hope you enjoy the show. Hello and happy Mindful Monday, Mindful and Fit fam. We are so excited for yet another episode of the Mindful Movement Show. It is our pleasure and honor to invite Jenna Crump to the show today. Jenna Crump is a wife, mother of 5 kiddos, college student, and graphic designer. Last year, Amanda and I had the privilege of meeting Jenna and collaborating with her, as well as benefiting from her immense talents and creativity. She was the illustrator on 2 of our best-selling books promoting loving kindness, self-acceptance, and interconnection. We are excited to share a conversation about the importance of movement and creative expression to cope with mental health struggles and some of the pains and struggles of being a mom, and then the particular ways to overcome some of your childhood conditioning and the value of promoting self-love and acceptance to our kiddos. Welcome to the Mindful Movement Show, Jenna. It is a pleasure to have you on. How are things going in Texas?
Hey guys, it is a bit of a struggle getting back after the new year, but it's going well. Kiddos are back in school and we're getting back to the routine. I go back to school next week, actually.
Yeah, right on.
Wow.
One of our goals is to normalize struggle. And
Yeah.
in order to do that, we have to share our stories. So, before the call, we were kind of alluding to some of the things you're working through. Care to share that with our listeners?
Sure. I was actually telling them if I have to peek away for a moment, my son is in urgent care right now getting an x-ray because he fell off his bike yesterday and he was playing with some friends and they were just riding around the neighborhood. He fell. He got dropped off by his friend's dad. Thank goodness for him, not making him drive back home. But we got him back immediately, and this morning we're still a little swollen. So,
I'm so sorry.
Well, we'll put good vibes out into
Yes.
the world that it resolves itself and
Thank
heals
you.
quickly.
Thank-
The joys of being a parent are that we get to help them navigate their pain, right?
Absolutely. He was actually super cute this morning because we were talking about, because our oldest, she broke her arm a few years ago. So of course, to him, big sister's already broken her arm. So he's like, my arm's broken for sure. It's gotta be. And so we were talking this morning and I was like, hey, you have to remember your brain is super powerful. And your brain, if you tell it that it hurts, it's gonna hurt more. Besides, so we talked about some ways to try not to think about the pain, but see if it's, be aware of it, see if it's still hurting. And he was like, okay, let's go.
That's brilliant.
What a trooper.
2 initial reactions.
Right? Yes,
One
the
is
initial reaction.
Yeah, we tell our daughter, Emery, your body is a healing machine, Where
That's
you
so
focus,
smart.
if you're focusing on your pain, you'll have more pain. But if you focus on the process
Yeah.
of healing, that process is likely to, go faster and be more sustainable. And then the second thing is
Absolutely.
we just dropped off Emery at school today, and she fell on the way up the stairs. And it's rainy here, and so she got some
Oh.
water on her clothes. She walked into her teacher, and she said, I fell, and my pants got wet. But it happens sometimes.
Oh, sweet girl.
And it made our hearts warm because her teacher said, that's my motto from 2023. And I learned that from a 3-year-old.
Because that's something that we've always said to her is it happens sometimes,
Yep.
It's okay to be in pain. It's okay. It's part of life,
Of course. And what
you
a
can't-
comforting saying.
Yeah.
It happens sometimes because sometimes all you need to hear is that you're not the only one.
Right.
Totally.
And think about that even as parents. That's kind of, I guess, maybe even the motto of our show is it happens sometimes,
Absolutely. I like it. That's we're going to make that the motto of 2023 for everyone. It
Next
happens
book.
sometimes.
It happens
Yes,
sometimes.
yeah. There we go.
Hey, that
I'm
would be a
in.
good
Yeah.
book. That's a great lesson.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
So we begin every show with the fundamental premise that our experiences shape who we are and how we show up in the world. And so I hope that you'll be comfortable sharing some of the formative experiences that shape who you are and how you show up as a person, a partner, and a parent to your kiddos.
Sure. Well, I guess we will start with my childhood. We'll go way back. I was an only child. My mom, I now know, suffered from bipolar disease, and she was also not very consistent on her medication taking. And this was a time where that was very stigmatized anyway. So there were a lot of struggles and issues there that, really took some adjustment for all of us. And it ended up with me being, I know we've talked about this before, being estranged from my mom at a pretty young age. So for me, it was all about, as a parent, learning from how I felt about things as a kid, learning from, what I liked, what I didn't like, what, went well, how to move through those things, and use that in my parenting journey and my adult journey too. Because one thing I would say our generation is very fortunate with is making the talk about mental health more normal, making it more comfortable. And, that's what we're doing, is getting the word out there. Self-love, mental health, all, we're all people. Yes. It happens sometimes.
Yes, it sure does.
So for me, it was about, learning from those things and creating a safe, loving, happy environment for my children. So for me, I learned as a young child, I would say, how to cope with my emotions a little bit, and that's really shaped how I discuss things with my children and how I approach things with them. And I said I was an only child. I was a very overachieving, stubborn only child. And I now know I was perhaps ADHD, definitely anxious, overachieving only child. So, now living in a house with 4 kids, it's different but the same, because I can see, for instance, when one of my children is maybe having a slightly anxious day or a slightly hyper-focused day or something like that, it helps me to be a little bit more understanding, and I can kind of meet them on their level and talk to them about it. Be like, hey, I've been there. I understand what you're going through. Let's take a break, refocus, and go again. So I guess that devolved. But as a young child, my parents divorced when I was in 7th grade. So I was about 12 years old. My parents divorced. It was not a healthy relationship for either of them or me. But for that, it kind of meant that they did the whole stay together for the kids thing. And it got to a point where I finally told my parents, I'm not happy. If you're staying together for me, it's not doing it for any of us. Wow. And so that ended up kind of being them both realizing, okay, this isn't working. And that's when they got divorced.
Wow.
It was, yeah. I guess now as a parent, realizing what that would mean for me as a parent, it makes me look back. But, I think it also gave both my parents the freedom to kind of do what made them happy, because that, again, was very stigmatized at the time. So it helped. They both went their separate ways. They've both remarried. So I've had, many good examples of happy relationships since then. So I was fortunate for that. But they were not a very healthy and good relationship. Well, fast forward a few years, I got into college, and high school times. I went through a string of not the best boyfriends. I actually had one boyfriend who uh, was physically abusive and mentally abusive. And after that relationship, I kind of hit a point where I was like, I don't think I want to date anymore. And kind of took a break. Right. Well, then I met my husband, the father of my two children, my two biological children. And so we got married at 20, well, just turned 21 years old. So we were babies. And we had our first daughter very young. We learned how to parent and adult with a newborn.
Mm.
And so we all grew, we all changed. And life got difficult as it does when you are learning how to pay bills and you are learning how to change diapers and make ends meet and all the things that you have to do to be a parent. And we got on our feet. We were good to go for a few years. And then after our second daughter was born, it just kind of became apparent to us that we were growing apart. And really, I think the biggest factor was we had both grown up and kind of grown different directions. And so we were in a position that was very familiar because do you stay together for the kids or not? And so for us, it ultimately ended up being just that we weren't compatible anymore. And it was best for us and our kids for us to separate. And so that being said, being a 20-something-year-old mom of two who at the time is unemployed and what where do you go from here? So we actually worked together for a long time. We made things work, and then I ended up moving in with my best friends who happened to have two children who were right at the same age as mine, who I had known for many years, and I had known. We joke now because Mikey, as a baby, I can remember holding him while Millie was still in my belly and she was kicking Mikey. And so, yeah, so I moved in with them a few years back, and we operate under the "it takes a village" philosophy. We raise our kids together. We work together as a team. My kids treat their kids like siblings. I would fight you if you try to tell me they weren't my kids. So, it is not the normal nuclear family, but we are happy and our kids are fantastic. And it has been a wild ride, but it's going pretty well right now.
I love that.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey and evolution, and also kind of vulnerably discussing the ways in which your childhood resulted in you learning self-advocacy skills, right? Like, I think the reason why both of us were like kind of taken aback was like the power for a little person,
a child,
to assert themselves and say, "Hey, look, if you're doing this for me, it ain't working," and to empower your parents with the fortitude to do what's right by you, but also to do what's right by themselves. Walk me through what it was like to learn emotional regulation skills with a model of parenthood that was inconsistent in that practice and maybe didn't take their medication. Like, how did you learn how to regulate your emotions without having a consistent role model in that aspect?
Sure. I will be completely honest and say I am still mastering that skill.
Aren't we all?
Right? It happens sometimes.
It happens sometimes.
But no, honestly, I would say for the most part, it was a lesson of what not to do, if that makes sense. For every reaction that I got, there was okay, what caused that reaction? How do we prevent that reaction from happening again? And it helped me to kind of, I guess, realistically, it probably made me a little bit of a control freak because I wanted to control all that factors, all of the potential outcomes, because I wanted to regulate. But it's just one of those things. As a parent, if I feel myself not responding appropriately, I immediately try to be like, "Hey, you've been in that position. You don't want them to feel that way, you know?" So that is always a very good reminder for me. But at the same time, it just was an example of the importance of consistency.
I echo so much of what you're saying because I call our oldest, my greatest teacher, because even though I've had a lot of great teachers in my life, I know what it's like to feel so small and so out of control and so dysregulated. And I never want her to feel that way. And so,
Absolutely.
one of my mentors said that parenthood is the greatest self-development course we could ever entertain if it's performed consciously. And that's what I try to do every day is when I'm
That's a
not
beautiful
consistent,
quote.
giving myself the space to feel my feelings so that I don't project them onto her.
Yes.
Especially because she's a lot, she's a big, bold personality and needs that loving care.
Sure.
Another follow-up I have for you in regards to your story is what compelled you to grow through or to have the self-realization that you and your ex had just grown apart? Some people would repeat those patterns and stay in it for the kids or try to force something. But what compelled you with the self-realization to say, hey, this isn't in anyone's best interest?
Sure. Honestly, I would say, for one, having the example of my parents and realizing the detriment of staying together when things aren't working. It causes so much. Now, looking back, I know it causes so much unnecessary stress and strain, and it detracts so much from us being present. So I think that was a big driving factor. Was I noticed myself kind of not being me. I was not feeling like myself. And I knew at that point that it was a detriment to all of us. And, we function great as co-parents, just perhaps not married. So.
And I know that you are active in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and practice breathing as a way to regulate anxiety. What role has breath to movement exercise or exercise in general played in helping you cope with some of the childhood stuff or some of the, divorce stuff? How has movement or breath work helped you cope?
So I started dancing at 2 years old. It was literally at that point not even a choice for me, but it is a choice I have made a million times over. I have danced my entire life, so movement is a huge part of my life. I find myself, if I am stressed or in my head or thinking, a lot of times you will see, my kids can attest, I will be in the kitchen doing bar stretches for like ballet stretches. It is ingrained. It is, if I am bored, if I am stressed, I resort to that. So at this point, it is very much a like a body control thing for me, I think. But so I danced for 17 years consistently, religiously. And then when I went to college, I couldn't afford dance classes for one, but for two, I was in a new area. I had moved from a small town in East Texas to Houston. I didn't know anywhere to go to take dance classes. So I took a hiatus. And for a long time, that was something I was missing. I needed a physical outlet. I would run, I would bike ride, but then, as you heard, very soon after I had babies, and it is even more difficult to get active and moving when you have a newborn and a toddler, or, and I didn't mention this earlier, but for a stint in there, I was also working at a private preschool and daycare center. So my hours at that time, because this was wonderful, I could bring my kids to school, but my hours at that time were, roughly 6 a.m. to about 6 at night. So there was there was not a lot of extra time. So I really actually got depressed with my body, with how I was feeling, and I was trying to fill that void. And I came across Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It was not very widely talked about at the time, but I did some research, found a gym in the area, and started training. That was such a breath of fresh air for me because not only was it that movement and that dopamine hit that I was, trying to get, but it was also such a experience for me to have such control over my body and my safety and you have to really be in a mindset for jujitsu because the majority of the time it is, for anyone who might not know, it is wrestling based. So Brazilian jiu-jitsu is primarily on the ground. I was the only female in a class full of men. So that in and of itself is out of my comfort zone. It was very different from ballet classes where it was all women and we were all prim and proper to now it is sweaty and stinky. But I had so much control over my body, and I learned so much about my ability as both a female and just as a person. And it was truly life-changing. And so now I am a huge advocate for women in martial arts, especially. It is one of those things, I heard someone refer to it once as like a small people sport. And I think that's a really funny way to put it, but it is because it's all fulcrum and leverage based. And so there's chokes and holds and different, positional things that if ever I were in a position where I felt like my children or myself were in danger, I feel like I could hold my own. And, that is a very empowering feeling. That Absolutely. Is a very, as a woman who doesn't quite hit the 5 foot mark, let me tell you, that is a good feeling.
Yes.
Because, I think Amanda's going to hop in here with a question, but
sure.
Talk about like finding comfort in discomfort, right? To be contorted into a particular position and have to use critical thinking skills, sit down, regulate your nervous system with your breath as you like maybe have your head and your arm contorted into a choke.
Right.
Talk me like through one of the times where you felt that body control. Like tell me about a story where you were in a super uncomfortable position and you had to find comfort in it.
Actually, so there's a few positions I will say that you can breathe through. And that is such a cool feeling because it's like, make a pop culture reference. Have y'all seen the new Matilda musical on Netflix?
No, but please share.
Oh, okay. So if not, shout out to that. Y'all know I'm a theater nerd. So I have helped direct and choreograph Matilda before for a local theater. It is a fantastic show. I love it, and it's so much fun. But there is a musical number called Quiet, and it talks about how everything is quiet. Like when all the noise and everything builds up around you and everything's so stressful, that moment of quiet. And it is a beautifully done song. I can't do it justice, but it is exactly that feeling. So that feeling of everything narrows. I normally in jiu-jitsu, if I am in a position where I know I'm going to have to like finagle, generally I close my eyes. I try to relax as much as possible and just breathe. And it is such a calming feeling, but it shouldn't be because it's such a chaotic, everything's happening. You have adrenaline, you have all of this. There's a 200-pound man on top of you. And you're like, if I just keep breathing, I'm okay right now. Like, I feel all right.
That's amazing. I'm curious because as you're talking, I'm just hearing so many like metaphors, even for life, is apparent. And some of our listeners may have practiced jujitsu, but for those who haven't, can you share any other maybe takeaways that you found from practicing jujitsu that you take into your daily practice as a parent?
I would say one is just kind of be ready for anything. Learn to, if something's coming in jujitsu, you can't really expect what's coming. You can anticipate it, but it's not ever going to be what you anticipate or what you expect. And I would say that is parenthood in a nutshell, because you can have the best laid plans. You can prepare, you can have everything laid out, and then the next morning someone vomits randomly, or something
Yeah.
happens. And there's no preparing or planning for that. You just have to kind of breathe through it, roll, and keep going and try to maintain that control. And that is exactly how jujitsu.
That's
Breathe through it,
amazing.
roll, and keep going. We should put that on shirts or
That's
bumper
really good.
stickers. I
Yeah,
love
we'll
it.
make a shirt.
And I'm curious because, you're speaking to something that I work with all the time in my course, and that is the idea that life is messy and you have to kind of embrace that. And I know that you kind of have that unique structure of, like you say, it takes a village. How do you stay on the same page with your village? Like just even removing the kids out of it, there
Right.
is vomit. Like how do you stay coordinated with your core people who, help you out?
Absolutely. Communication, communication, communication. I can say that actually goes for everything. That, as a partner, as a parent, as a employee, as a everything, communication. But we have group chats where we talk through what's for dinner, who needs to take what out, what dishes are done, what laundry's been done, you know, everything and anything, just so that we're on the same page. Also, family calendars and all the things. Because with four kids, two in middle school, two in elementary school, there's always something. And actually, if you
God
look
bless
right
you.
there, that's my written calendar, which is way more empty than our digital one. But yeah, so it is constant just check-ins, make sure everyone's on the same page, make sure, everyone's needs are met, all the kids are cared for. That's the best advice I can give there is communicate. Open and honest. Communicate when you're frustrated, communicate when you're happy, communicate.
Yeah.
So, a follow-up question, real quick. You have kids, you have school, you have your family and relationship. How do you also make sure to manage time for yourself? And what advice would you give to other parents who might be wanting a jujitsu class, or whatever, that self
Right.
outlet? What advice would you give to them?
Absolutely. Um, so it's all about finding balance, I think. For me, I have to kind of sometimes justify my alone time or my time to go take a run or go to the gym or, whatever the case may be. But I justify it by making sure that I spend that time with kids too, or make sure that, Mike or Amy is available. Hey, can you take the kids to this while I go get just a little bit of quiet time? And I try to find that balance. I try to utilize my time as wisely as possible. Because, like, so for
Lives, yeah.
instance, just right, yeah. So, for instance, I know we talked about my schedule, but just to kind of give a layout. So, for me, for school this semester, I have class from 9:30 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night on Mondays and Wednesdays. That is a crazy schedule. I am aware.
You hear that?
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I really rely on Mike and Amy heavily during those nights to, get kids, get everyone fed, get everyone taken care of. And I text and make sure everything's done, see if I need to bring anything home on my way. But I have about an hour break in between both of those, or between there's three classes that spread out the day. So my goal is to use that time to eat because I have to nourish my body, but also to kind of listen to myself. Some days that hour break is I'm caught up on everything and I need to sit in the car for 45 minutes with a coffee in silence or a book. And
Mm.
then other days, if I am stressed and overwhelmed and I recognize this, I use that time to grab a quick snack and work on something so that my time later is allocated to other things and I can focus on everything else. So that is my thing is prioritizing when I can have those quiet moments, making that a priority, but also recognizing that, hey, if I do this now, I'll have free time later. We have a saying with our kids, do what you have to do now so that you can do what you want to do later.
Love that.
And so that makes some of the not so fun tasks a little easier to swallow because you're like, hey, I have to do this now, but I get to have fun later.
And what I'm also hearing you say is that you have to be willing to advocate for your needs as you're balancing the level of care you
Definitely.
provide for your kids' needs. You have to be willing to lean into the support system that you've created for yourself and your family. And you have to be
Absolutely.
aware enough to listen to what your body's needs are in the moment, right? So if you have the ability to release the pressure valve by taking you time, whether it be a run, coffee and silence in a car, a gym class, take it because it'll
Right.
benefit you later on in terms of your focus and efficiency. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so if you don't mind, I want to share a little bit about how we came to know each other because I
Sure.
believe that it offers a teaching moment for anyone who doubts that the universe is always taking care of them. So,
Absolutely.
as listeners may or may not know, I formerly occupied the position of an assistant professor and a college debate coach at College of the Mainland. I in March of 2022, I was notified that my contract would not be renewed for the fall of 2022 and the spring of this year, 2023. So all of a sudden, my family, who had two kids under two, including a newborn, who was less than 5 months old at the time, was going to lose a sizable chunk of our income. This was after 2 years of really rebuilding our health, our wellness, our emotional resilience, and resolve following the craziness of bringing a newborn into the world during the pandemic. And I found myself listening to my body. Instead of being caught up in the emotional turbulence of my own thoughts, I went for a walk on campus and I found myself in the art building. And I walked through the art building and I saw this beautiful and really important children's book hanging on the wall that had some like a
Illustrations
beautiful illustrations and a really important message of creativity and ingenuity and engineering,
and humor.
and it was really beautiful, and I found myself reading it, and I looked to the right, and in the office there was a bunch of signs that like said, if you can dream it, you can do it. um, Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. And I look to the left and I see this children's book, and I'm like, oh man, number one, I gotta get this on video of me reading it so that I can share it with Emery, because one of our favorite things to do is to read children's books, to spend quality time digging into the characters and the storylines and things like that. But also, Amanda and I had talked about how cool it would be to write children's books to be able to create that quality time for other people. And I hope this story's not going too long, but I
You're
filmed
great.
myself reading the story cover to cover because each page was on a wall inside a glass cover on showcase and display in the art building at College of the Mainland. And I went home, I told Amanda, I was like, we got to create some children's books. And so we started writing, we got our books, our first 4 books written, and several more ideas created. And then I was like, well, Amanda has some talents in illustration and creativity. I don't, but maybe we could have her do it. Maybe we could have somebody on Fiverr do it. And it came to me, well, what if I reached out to a couple of colleagues who I'm very close to in the art department to see if there's anyone at College of the Mainland that can illustrate these books? And so I did that. I reached out to Christy Pete. If she's listening, shout out. She put out the feelers for us seeking a illustrator for our kids' books. And there were only 2 replies, and one of which was Jenna. And it just so happened to be that the person who wrote the book wrote and illustrated the book on the wall was also Jenna. And so I think that the universe brings people into our life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
When that happened, by the way, like we were in shock. Like that alone was like, we had the video of Tony, show you. I think you even brought Emery there to see it.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, what are the chances that, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it was just like such a moment of like, oh my gosh, we love this person's stuff so much. And she's free. She could do something. So
yeah, she's not only able to, but interested and can use it to benefit her academic career, which we'll talk about in a moment. I think there's 2 takeaways from the story, and then I'll create space for you to react. Number 1, the universe is going to put people in your life that are meant to help you grow and that you can help grow at the same time. And then number 2, if you pay attention to the signs and follow your path, you'll find what works for you and you'll find what your purpose is. So I want to talk about your reaction in general, but also what motivated you to go back to school to pursue your creativity, and how does that help you cope with stress too?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I worked in a childcare facility for 4 years, a good while. But also I have been a mom for 13 years. After I left the childcare facility, I decided I was going to do web design. I got online. I had some good friends who helped me, and I did my best to learn to code. And I loved it. I got a fantastic job working for a startup company that actually has a small business grant from NASA, and they are making drones that are autonomous, and it's such a cool experience just being in there while they're doing their thing. But I got a chance to do some front end work for them, and actually my boss there was the one who was like, hey, I have a project that I'd like for you to work on, but you have to be degreed. And I had put my degree on hold when Kaylee was born, and I hadn't finished my degree. So I had credits, but not a full degree. And so I was like, okay, well, at that time I was, mom, I was working there, and I was also teaching dance and theater at a local children's theater in Friendswood. So I was like, this isn't really a great time. I don't know if you know this, but I was like, I'm old and I've got things going on. No. And he was like, no, really. He was like, really, you should consider it. And so actually it was with them helping, and they were actually extremely generous and paid for my first semester back at school and really helped me get going. And so I started with school online, and I was doing web and graphic design. And then from there, my actual first semester because this is all during COVID as well, my first semester where I had in-person classes was with Christy Pete. And that class was my first endeavor into digital art. I've always enjoyed drawing. I love all things theater. I love all art in general for the most part. So, it wasn't a big, but it was something that I've never done. I'm sure y'all are kind of in the same boat where we weren't raised with computers until we were a little bit older. Mm-hmm. And so to me, digital art was
how do we do this?
Yeah, I was like, what do I do? How do I do this? And so her class was really interesting because I got to work with drawing tablets for the first time. And I got to do all sorts of stuff. Like I worked with images, I drew, we did animations, we did all sorts of stuff. And it was really a nice foray into digital art. And so we did that. And that class, all of our critiques throughout the semester were people saying, your art kind of looks like a children's book. And I was like, that math checks out. Like, I like drawing cartoons. Yeah. I was like, yep. And so it was kind of funny. But then for our final project, we had to do a portfolio piece. So it was essentially supposed to be kind of a overall look at what your work had been and what you learned over the semester. So I took a couple of pieces that I had already done for the class, and I adapted them to go with the story that I had in my head. And I drew up the rest of it, and that started Roscoe and Lily, the book that you saw in the library or in the art building. And that was really a changing moment for me, though, because I love development and coding and things of that nature. But the creative part of the graphic design nourishes me so much more than any other job I've ever had. I absolutely love it. And so it was so interesting because I had just finished that and I got the book and I was still riding high from Christy asking me to have my book on display in the art building. And I was so excited because I had worked so hard on it and I was so proud. And I was like, man, I really enjoyed this project. And I was actually sitting in one of my art classes the next semester when I got your email. And I immediately was like, I was like, is this real life? And I immediately responded. I was like, yes, yeah, I'll do that. That sounds fantastic. And it was so wonderful to meet you guys and to see how much of the same page we were on for, everything that we felt and all the messages that you guys wanted to bring to kids were things that are really important to me. And it was just such an exciting moment to be like, everything is falling in place and I'm not sure how this happened. And even if it's real at this moment, but I'm here for it. Like,
same.
Right? I was like, pinch me. I'm not sure. This could all be a dream. I don't know, but let's go.
And it's amazing how, just to like kind of respond to some of what you're saying, it's amazing how from our end and from your end, it's like sometimes when things are in alignment, it's an alignment not only for like each other, but also like all of your different passions, right? It's like
yes,
what you work on, what you love to do in your spare time, what nourishes you like internally as a person. It's like this amazing intersection of like so many different things.
And what the world needs.
And what the
right?
world needs.
Like,
yeah.
what kids
Absolutely.
nowadays need, which is understanding that they are loved regardless of their unique and special differences,
Absolutely.
that they are part of something that is larger than themselves and that their life is worth it. And even though it'll be a struggle at times, as it often is, teaching them to lead with love and to lead with compassion and to accept themselves even in spite of their differences.
Well, and I think we
Absolutely.
all grew up in a world like where we were all told to fit into a certain box, right?
Right.
And even with social media now, that's a thing where it's like you see these families or these moms or dads or people who are fitting into these like perfect little lives. And
Right.
I think the message that we're all really passionate about sharing is this idea that it's great to be different. Not only should you be loved in spite of those things, you should be proud of those things, especially because of those things. And I think it is just such a timely needed message because I don't want our daughters to grow up in a world where they feel like they have to fit into a certain box. You know?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I could say like, especially with having 13-year-old girls is an interesting endeavor. Because
I'm not ready for that.
No. Avery and Ellie stay little.
Yes, babies.
Please. No, they're wonderful, but it is such a different type of wonderful, right? Like it is. We were talking about this the other day. It's so bittersweet because it's so exciting to see all the different things that they're doing and going through, but at the same time, you long for those days when they were little bitty and needed you for everything. Um, so that, but but it is so interesting to see the world the way they're living in it right now, and already the changes that are happening. And like you said, everything doesn't need to fit in a box, and being different is fantastic. I Elle is an eighth grader. She is so they're the highest grade at their intermediate school, and that girl will still wear giant hair bows regularly to school. And
Yes.
someone said something like, Elle, you're the only one at school who wears those. And she goes, so
Yeah.
I like
I
them.
love it. I love that.
She's
That's
like,
great.
they make me happy. I don't wear them for anyone else. And I was like,
Get it.
that's my girl.
Yes. Yes. That's amazing.
So, that is the people I want to put into this world. That is, that is what I want all kids to feel is, hey, it's not for them. You wear what you want to wear. You be who you want to be, because what you think of you is way more important than what they think of you.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And so we've had the benefit or the privilege of collaborating with you on 2 books, Bodies of Water, which is a story about all the different forms that water takes, and the idea that we are all, in essence, bodies of water, because we're all 98%
Absolutely.
water. And the takeaway is that more unites us than divides us. And if we focus on the things that unite us, the world would be a happier, healthier place to live.
Mm-hmm.
And the second
Absolutely.
is Magnificent Blue Butterfly. Can you tell us a little bit about that book and why it touched your heart so much?
Sure. So Magnificent Blue Butterfly is all about this caterpillar who everyone thinks is, a little different, because instead of going around doing caterpillar things, he makes a puzzle. And as he's looking for puzzle pieces, he realizes that the puzzle he's putting together is actually himself. And so it's all about finding yourself. And once he finds himself, he spends the rest of his time loving everyone else in the jungle and sharing his happiness. And it's such a beautiful story just because of the fact that that's what we're all doing. And I think the sooner we kind of see who we are, the easier it is to love others.
Absolutely.
Amen.
That idea that once you can love yourself, you can, it is so much easier to unconditionally love other people too, for sure.
It is.
And shout out to... Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
No, you can. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say, between that and what we were saying earlier, you can't pour from an empty glass, right? Once you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of anyone else.
That's very, very true, and wisdom that I think we all can live by. I just wanted to offer a quick shout out to David Daniel Ahern, who is the creator of the Secret Blue Butterfly movement. The book is in some ways inspired by his movement, which is to pollinate the world with kindness. If you go to secretbluebutterfly.com, you can get for free delivered to you little paper, cardboard butterflies that he asks you to put into the world with a random act of kindness. So whether it be like a coupon or $5 or a handwritten note that says, I love you, his movement is to do exactly that, to spread joy, connectivity, and love by performing random acts of kindness.
Yeah, he's a wonderful author, and I would definitely recommend checking out his stuff. That's a great point, Tone.
And Jenna, can you tell us what is on the horizon in terms of your illustration and what listeners can expect if they want to, buy more of these books for their kiddos?
Yes, of course. We have 2 more books coming out. One is called The Little Rain Cloud, and it is all about finding your self-worth. It's about a rain cloud who is at first a little bit sad and thinks that all he is dreary and pale or, boring. And then he realizes that that was the best way to put that. We'll edit that out.
I love it.
Okay. But so he realizes after he sees through others' eyes his importance. He realizes that he provides water for plants and he makes rainbows and he fills rivers and he does all of this wonderful stuff and that, he's important. And so that one is very fun. Then the other is The Tale of Two Seeds, and it actually features Tony, because it is Tony and Ellie planting seeds in the garden. And it is a very special book about the seeds of thought that we put out into the world and realizing that we can either nourish those good seeds or those bad seeds. And the ones we give our attention to are the ones that are going to be the most formative.
Love it. Love it. And I just want to echo what we started with, which is it has been an absolute privilege to know you as a person, to benefit from your candidness and your wisdom and your creativity. And if you look at the reviews for either of the books we put out, Bodies of Water or Magnificent Blue Butterfly, at least every other review mentions that they were illustrated magnificently.
Jenna is incredibly talented. Yes.
Thank you guys so much. I am so thankful to work for you guys, and it is such a pleasure just to have you in my life and have you be part of the village. So,
absolutely, we're here for it too.
Yes. But I love you guys, and I'm looking forward to much more.
Yes, more good things to come.
And we want to conclude the episode by encouraging anyone who's struggling to find their community and to lean in for support. Definitely. Because you are not alone, and to trust that whatever path you're on is uniquely yours to carve out and to become inspired and to navigate and grow through what you're going through.
Absolutely.
And if you've learned nothing else from this lesson, from this episode, it is that struggle is totally normal, that it happens sometimes, and that it is possible to grow as long as you feel your feelings and heal from them.
Absolutely. So thank you, Jenna, and find those things that nourish you. Find those things that make you feel like you, that, make you feel good about what you're putting out into the world. So,
amen. Thank you for sharing this conversation with us. I hope you have a really good day.
Thanks, y'all too.
Take care. Wow, what an episode. Thank you for listening. We hope you took some meaningful tools and skills that empower you to become your highest self in every way.
We also hope you'll help us spread our messages of solidarity, social support, and consciousness raising by subscribing to our YouTube channel @Mindful and Fit and offering us an honest 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts.
Doing so helps more people hear these important messages of love, healing, and becoming.
And as always, much love from the Johnson family. We hope you make today amazing.
Just like you.